First item on the agenda, elect a chairman of this committee until the first meeting after the annual council meeting in May 26th. I'd like to propose Councillor Ball.
Second.
Second.
Well, it's proposed, it's seconded, there'll be
Yeah.
a vote on that, so
Yes.
when the time comes, I'll vote on it.
Okay, take the vote.
So that's everybody going.
Over to you then.
Yeah, so, so I take over from here. I'd like to welcome members of the public. Can I just remind members of the public that you're entitled to attend the meeting as observers, but you're not entitled to take part in the meeting. You're entitled to record the meeting, either in audio and or video, but if you're doing so, can you please make sure you don't get any other members of the public in shot? Thank you. Item 2, apologies for absence.
One apology, excuse me, from Councillor Holiday, who has a prayer commitment.
So, consider the reasons for absence provided by Councillor Holiday. Are these acceptable? Is that acceptable?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, Chairman.
Sorry, was that I had two yes, 3 people with their hands up at the same time. Those in favour of accepting 2, 3. Those against? Right. Right. Item 3, election of committee vice chairman.
What do you propose, Councillor?
Councillor Kendall?
Okay.
Yeah, I'll second that. Those in favour?
You can vote for yourself.
Yeah. Item 4, any declarations of interest on any of the items on this agenda? Okay. Item 5, North Yorkshire Council policy on election recharges. To receive and note their email and policy and agree action as appropriate. It's all been sent round. I think we don't really have much option. It's not an accept or reject question, we just have to note that these are their charges. But I do think we ought to make provision in our budget for next year for any potential by-elections and in the future year for the North Yorkshire Council elections.
I think the next budget is for 2027, and I'm fairly sure there'll be a contested election in 2027.
Yeah, that's what I said, yeah.
Yes, and I think you're absolutely right about that. Has there ever been a contested election at New Gberal Town Council?
I can't recall one. I have to ask the clerk, I'm not around, been around it now.
There has been elections. The difference is that historically the borough council, they didn't used to do recharges, and now that it's North Yorkshire Council, they're doing it because some of the councils, when unification took place, did do recharges, so
That explains it.
Money then.
again,
Just as a general point, I think it's always dangerous when we have co-option followed by co-option followed by co-option. There needs to be an election for this council.
Yeah, but
And
that's not the subject of this
Oh,
item.
it is.
No, it isn't.
It is election recharges, and I'm just saying, I'm making the point, Chairman,
Yeah.
that there should be elections. That's a democratic principle that we should all stand by.
So, any other comments on item 5?
No.
just got to accept an apology to, when I'm doing a draft budget,
Yeah,
I need to build something in.
that's right, yes, yeah.
Okay.
So we receive a note that North Yorkshire Council's policy, and we're going to build a provision into budget. Item 6, model publication scheme. Got the clerk's report. And the recommendations. Any comments before we go to the recommendations or questions?
Well, I think, Chairman, I'm not quite sure that the clerk is right here. I'm sorry to say that, Mrs. Marley, but the 25,000 to, is it 200,000? I think this council was required to follow the small authorities, the smaller authorities, because we are required to do that, and as a consequence of that, I think we must comply with the £100. That's what the Information Commissioner says, and I don't think the advice that we've received from the YLCA is acceptable either. I think as a general principle, where both the Information Commissioner in this case said it must be £100, then we must comply with that. And when NELC says in its transparency code that there's no specifically mandate, but they do strongly encourage all parish and town councils with annual turnovers under 200,000 to adhere to the transparency code for smaller authorities at a minimum. So I would reject the advice that comes from the YLCA, and I think it is reasonable for the council to say, well, we're not going to backdate anything. We can't go back over the last 6 years or 10 years and change everything. And I don't think it's reasonable to ask Clark to do that for this year. But what I would suggest is that we continue with the £300 for this year, but the intention must be to comply with the Information Commissioner and publish anything over £100 from next year. That's a slight variation on number 3.
Any other comments?
No, to a certain degree I agree with Councillor Buckley. But I do think it would be worth contacting the ICO and seeing if we can change the de minimis to
Yeah.
300.
I agree, yeah.
Have we checked that there are any other councils that have changed it? Whether it's standard or not.
Why would you want to change what
Yeah,
the information
Buckley,
commissioner?
you've had your say.
I'm asking a question.
Yes, you've had your say, thank you.
Chairman, are we not able to
No.
ask questions?
No.
Why not?
I think
Councillor,
it would be worth inquiring
yeah,
rather than take a instant decision. What are other councils of similar size doing? And from the ICO, can we change it? If the ICO says no, then we can't. And it's as simple as that. And at which point we would have to work with Councillor Buckley. But I do think it's worth asking these questions.
yeah,
The amount, or what you can actually buy for £300 these days is so
Exactly.
negligible. It's, you know, we're not talking about massive expenditure.
yeah, it's, yes. I mean, personally, I tend to agree. I think the weighing up the costs of you know, I don't think they should backdate anything, but
No.
certainly the costs of the added costs of recording everything over £100 is not justified, particularly in view of the fact that I think that the model publication scheme from the Information Commissioner is several years, if not at least a decade old, and the value of £100 then is probably less than £300 now. So,
Yes.
yeah. Shall we take the recommendations in turn? Recommendation
Have
one.
we discussed this fully, Chairman?
Has anyone else got any? Councillor?
I'm quite happy with
No.
that.
Well, I've got a proposal, so if I can put my proposal, I propose that we leave the model publication scheme at £300 for the rest of this financial year, but fully comply with the model publication scheme requirement of £100 from 26-27, and the clerk to council be authorised to make the necessary arrangements and put the recommendation into place.
Right.
So that's my.
That's your proposal.
That's my
So can we
proposal.
go back, please, to recommendation number 1? Committee receives and
Just as a formal point, Chairman, that was my proposal.
Yes.
I note it hasn't been seconded, so it's fine. It doesn't stand, but just to move straight
are you
on.
withdrawing it?
No, I'm not withdrawing
Right.
it. It's on the.
Can we please go to recommendation 1? Committee receives and notes this report. Those in favour?
Yeah, I propose.
Thank you. Recommendation 2. Committee considers the cost implications and the reasonableness perspective before committing itself to a course of action. Well, I think we've done that. So
Do you want to vote?
those in, yeah.
I personally, I would like to find out more information. Can we actually change this diminished before we set ourselves in stone? Does that make sense?
Yeah. How?
That's exactly what the next two items.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So have we agreed on two?
I've had a look at other councils in the country that fit into our category, which is over £25,000 for under £200,000. And that is well over 50% of the town parish councils in this country. Interestingly, almost all of them on their model publication scheme, they say we have adopted the model publication scheme, which is the £100, but then some do 100, some do 200, some do 500, and I strongly suspect that a lot of people, much as we have done, have not actually realised that they're not under a transparency code, but there's completely separate legislation is the £100. And I think there is this dichotomy across the country, and I think it's inevitable because you've got two conflicting pieces of legislation. There is nothing legally to prevent you writing to the ICO and saying, can we keep going with £300 forever, or can we keep going with £300 for this year? But you have to be prepared to accept that if they do answer you, it may well be, no, you can't, never mind the transparency codes, we say it's £100, because that is the default as far as they're concerned.
I do think it's worth asking the question though, based on the amount of time it will take the clerk to put in all the additional data, not this financial year, but certainly next financial year. That's council and public money that we're spending, and we need to be aware of that. So I think it's possibly worth having that conversation with the ICO and seeing if we can change the de minimis, which would then bring us into line with legislation.
You have asked if they say no, then by default you will have to accept that it is £100.
Yeah.
And I would suspect that by the time you get that decision, you're going to be that much closer to the end of this financial year. And quite possibly by the time the ICO gets around to it, we're going to be into 26, 27, so it'll be a bit of a moot point.
So can I?
The ICO does say we must publish the following, and it says £100.
Yes, that's what we've already established that.
And
Yes, we've already established that, Councillor Buckley.
Chairman,
No, Councillor Buckley.
Councillor Kendall has spoken several times, and you are now stopping me from speaking. I've got a valid point to make. I would like this council to listen to it. So,
It's not a council, it's a committee meeting.
whatever you want to call it, Chairman, I'll bow to that. Now, the Information Commissioner does say must, doesn't say whatever variation of that word, it says
That's what
must.
the clerk has just said that.
When you finish, Chairman, I'll carry on. So, the NALC Transparency Code is that we should adhere to the Transparency Code for smaller authorities at a minimum.
Yeah, you said that before.
Well, I have, but I'm not so sure it's quite registering, Chairman.
Mr. Buckley.
Must.
Yes, you've said that several times, and we're now going to pass on. So can I take it that we are not committing ourselves to a course of action at this point? Are you agreed on that? Those in favour?
Yeah.
Well,
Those in favour? 1, 2, 3. Anything?
Yourself to a course of action.
What are we doing then, Chairman, if we decided that we're not going to have a course of action?
So, what's on the table? We continue with the council sheet, and then we go to £100,
Right.
from 26, 27.
Can we take the advice?
In my report, I've said that you may wish to consider asking the ICO to amend.
Yeah.
But if you don't take any action, would I be right in thinking that I am to continue as we are, where we're sticking to the £300 limit, and you are not going to adjust the limit with the ICO's consent, and you are not going to comply with the ICO's limit from some point
I think
going forwards?
what I understood the recommendation to mean is that we wouldn't change our current practice
Yeah,
for the time being.
yeah, the recommendation
Yes.
is that basically you instruct me to write to the ICO saying, at the moment we're doing £300, will you agree to us continuing that? And they will either come back and say yes they will or no they won't.
That is correct.
Yeah.
So can we then take Councillor Buckley's proposal? Is there a seconder for that proposal? No, so it falls. And for authorise the clerk to make the necessary arrangements to put that recommendation into effect. To put those
Contact the ICO.
decisions into effect. Yeah, contact the ICO.
Agreed on that, yeah.
Agreed.
And is that everybody in favour of recommendation 3?
No, I wouldn't agree to that.
And recommendation 4 in favour. 3 against. Okay. Item 7 to approve the schedule of accounts payable for October 25. I think we have that.
I think if you've got that, I also
There
remember
it
the
is, there it
schedule
is.
of accounts.
Yeah,
It's
there it
there.
is. Yeah. Right. Any observations on the schedule of accounts? Is Councillor Buckley?
Chairman, is the schedule of accounts published on the website? Because this came through into my council email address the other day. I'm not so sure it's actually on the council website.
Well, it is council, so I'm
Well,
sorry for
well-
that, but it's there.
Yeah.
I've seen it this morning, I've actually printed the agenda off.
Well, that's my
For a member
question,
of public.
Chairman.
Right.
The principle is that this should be on the council website. It's interesting that just a few months ago,
Yeah.
we were told it was impossible to do. And I would like to have sight of 7.5 active security, please. And also 711 Hallmaster licence renewal. What is the service that Hallmaster provides?
Hall booking and invoicing,
And it's £265 a year?
yes.
Thank you. And the other one was
Gross.
7.5. I've not seen a minute of this council that approves expenditure on that active security or the security guards that we have. Is there a minute that approves that?
Yes, every time there's an invoice and it has gone before council on the schedule of accounts, they've either been authorised or ratified, therefore there is a minute.
Any other comments?
Just on the point of finances, Chairman, do I take it that 3.5 and 19.2 are still suspended and that all this expenditure is...
We're still on the current standing orders and financial
Yes,
regulations.
absolutely. So all this expenditure is approved by the clerk and the chairman or the vice chairman?
If it was, it wouldn't be in front of you this
No.
morning.
No, it has to be approved by chairman, vice chairman, I think, at the moment.
Well, it's approved by all,
Yeah.
the committee,
Yeah.
Yes,
for the you then to go away and pay.
it's authorised by the chairman and the clerk or the vice chairman and the clerk.
No, it is
Yeah.
not
It's-
the
it's
council of
It's
the
not
public.
authorised by the clerk.
The clerk doesn't authorise anything. If you read the financial regulations, you will see that the clerk stroke RFO sets the payments up. Payments which have to go through beforehand are discussed with the chairman, but everything goes onto the schedule of accounts. There is nothing that goes through that isn't already recorded somewhere else.
So,
Can I move that we accept these?
thank you.
Yeah.
Seconder?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Those in favour of accepting, the approving the schedule of accounts?
Is there anybody against or
Any against?
abstaining?
Yes. One.
Right, could I ask you to sign that?
Sign that one back. Oh, yeah.
Please.
When does this go before the council, chairman,
Next council meeting.
which is in November?
Which is for noting, not for
Yeah.
approving.
Right, yeah.
So the council's been taken out of the loop of approving expenditure. I don't think that's a good idea.
Next item, external payroll. Note that provision of the external payroll provision is being set up. Suppose we just note that.
Yes.
How will this be monitored by the council, chairman, when it is set up? Because at the moment we have the expenditure here. How will that be reported to the council?
Payroll's never reported to the council.
Well, it's on there. I can see it.
So it'll come through the, am I right in thinking it'll come through the account?
All expenditure should be,
It will go through them, but payroll is a contractual payment,
That's right, yeah.
as opposed to one that does it. Therefore,
Yeah.
if for any reason it was not paid, you would be in breach of contract with your staff.
That's right. Yeah.
so my
Yeah.
question still stands. How will this be monitored by the council? If it doesn't appear on these schedules?
It will appear on the schedule of accounts, it will just be in the name of the
Yeah.
company that we
That's-
are
yeah.
using to provide payroll.
Right, okay,
Okay,
okay, that's fair enough.
note. I think, agree that's noted.
Yeah.
Yeah. Item 9, Christmas lights at Newlands. Do you have a verbal update?
Yeah, if we wanted to replace the lights that are on the tree at the moment with ones identical to what we used to have, you are looking at a cost in the region of £1,500. If you are prepared to accept something that is less durable, then you are looking at replacing the existing white coloured lights with multicoloured lights. And for that, you will be looking at round about £200. You have to take into account the fact that the cheaper lights will not last as long. They may only last 3 or 4 years, so you will have to do an assessment as to how many years you will have to keep replacing them as opposed to spending in the region of £1,500.
Is there a budget for replacing Christmas lights?
We do have an earmarked reserve, excuse me, the Christmas lights, yes.
Of how much?
The moment it's, I think, either 5,000 or 6,000.
Oh, so that would be covered, but, right, so it's a question of, do we replace the current lights? Before we get to that, are the current lights at the end of their useful life?
No,
No,
they were new last year.
Ah,
just the white, not coloured.
right, okay. In that case, if they were new that year and they are durable, then I propose that we don't replace them.
We've got difficulty there because council resolved that you wanted to replace them.
Oh, did we?
Yes.
I thought we just reverted into it.
No, you resolved
Alright.
that you wanted to replace them to look into the cost of it and report back to this meeting.
Okay.
Helen?
Is it possible to run 2 sets of lights together? So that we've got coloured lights and the white lights. We want value for money from the white lights, but I think the good burghers of Newby wanted to have coloured lights on their Christmas tree. So can we get the cheaper ones and run them alongside the other ones?
That is possible but not guaranteed. You can only chain together, you can only daisy chain so many sets onto one transformer. I asked for a price for 10 sets of lights, which will go onto this transformer. But I don't know if they can both be daisy chained if both lots can both be daisy chained onto one transformer, and there's certainly not the capacity to put 2 transformers, onto the electric point.
Okay, well, could we ask the person who's installing them whether we could add another set of lights on?
Not sets of lights.
Yeah.
The price that has been given is for 10 sets of
Oh, I
lights.
see.
They are
So
daisy
it
chained
might
together.
yeah. So, yeah.
Can I recommend that we go for the £150 ones? I cannot see that we can warrant an expenditure of £1,500.
No.
Not when we've just paid for a brand new set of white ones.
Yeah.
Possible to ask the Borough Council, can we daisy chain
Yeah.
some in,
Yeah.
so we do have a combination, but
Yeah.
I can't see that that would possibly work.
Yeah.
But if we need coloured ones, we need coloured ones.
Right. Okay, yeah. I can, yeah, I'll second that.
So that I'm we're going to look at getting the 10, I'm going to describe here as the 10 sets of cheap lights.
Yes.
And see if it is within the capacity of the transformer to also utilise any of the
The light
existing
boxes, yeah.
lights. Am I correct with that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's correct. Anybody against that? No, that's carried. Item 10,
I just wanted to say, you
Yeah.
said £150, but it'd be nearer the 200.
Yeah,
well, yeah, that's the cheaper one.
Okay.
200 against 1500.
Yeah,
sorry.
it's a no-brainer, yeah. Item 10, to note that the planter at Lane Ends has been ordered and paid for at a cost of £568.80, including VAT and delivery, and it's likely to be installed towards the end of October.
Is this being done through the borough?
The installation, yes, the delivery's going to be down to the works depot down at Gberal.
And what about sort of the planting?
Yes, they're going to deal with that. The original plant has already gone.
Yeah.
That was removed a couple of weeks ago.
That's good, right, is it agreed to note that item?
Yeah.
Any against? Item 11, external audit of the 24-25 accounts. That's immediate last financial year's accounts. 11.1, to note that an interim external auditor's report has been issued by our auditors, PKF Littlejohn. So it's only an interim report because they cannot complete their review on the AGAR and supporting documentation because they have received correspondence in relation to the 24-25 accounts. So they don't say that that the correspondence is objections, but it's probable, I suggest. Yeah, that's another one that I mean the previous years cost this council nearly £8,000, I think.
Yeah.
And it's over 9,000 if you include VAT. So I think we ought to make a provision in our budget for a similar sort of amount.
Yeah.
Could we add that to 11.1, or just take a note of it for when we come to the budget?
If you want written minute,
Yeah,
it's been noted if that's what
that's
council
right.
does.
Yeah. So are we noting and?
Yes.
Yeah. In favour? Any against? Right, so that's all.
It's the price of democracy, Chairman. Value for money. It's well worth paying for.
And 11.2, to agree how long the interim audit notice be displayed on the council's website, and we have a recommendation until we receive the final notice.
I agree.
Yeah. Agreed?
Yeah.
Right.
Chairman, you said 11.1.
Yeah.
Do you want me to work on the theory that challenge work is going to cost us £8,000?
I think, yeah, plus, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Good as no inflation will probably work its way through by then. Item 12, budget. To note, recommendations will need to be ready for consideration by council at the ordinary council meeting on 12th of November. do we have anything to consider at this meeting as regards budget?
No, there's nothing yet. I need to get to what's a month-end accounts done
Right.
before I've actually got this year's expenditure.
Yeah.
It's the end of September. Then I will be able to do the forward projections for what I'm likely to spend for the rest of this year. From there, I will be able to add inflationary costs, things that we know we want building into the budget, and various other things, and then they will be brought either to another meeting of this committee with recommendations to full council.
That's what I was
Or
working
they will,
towards.
or they will go to full council for agreement.
Right.
Your budget cannot be set by committee,
No,
nor
no.
can your precept.
No.
It can only be recommended,
Right.
and all I can do is hope that the recommendations that committee makes when they go to council don't end up being subject to ping pong.
Well, yes. Cool.
So,
No,
so
that-
I
yeah,
guess
that-
that, Chairman, something to what?
Ping pong.
Being referred back to committee. I mean, I think.
Yeah, it's what Parliament does all the time.
Well,
Well,
yeah.
send it backwards and forwards between the Commons and the Lords. It's
No,
what-
that would be fatal.
Chairman, last year there was £1,000 in the budget for legal expenditure, and the outturn, as you know, was 20 odd thousand. That is why there's an objection to last year's accounts. Could you tell me how we monitor our budget throughout the year? Because we've set a budget, and if the only time.
If the budget is.
Chairman, please allow me to speak.
Yeah.
That's your job, to make sure that councillors are heard. You might not like my questions, you might not like what I say, but it's still worth saying. So we have these budget headings, and there's no monitoring of that by the council in any way, shape or form during the year. And last year, for example, I think the chairman was embarrassed because he found that he had to propose £22,000 overspend. You pushed the motion through, so there was no discussion. And if there's no discussion, then how can the council be monitoring any of that? So I'm going to ask that there is a 3-monthly report from the clerk on the budget and how expenditure compares with that budget, so that we are not in the embarrassing situation of having an overspend of £22,000. That's my proposal.
I agree with Councillor Buckley. That a report comes to F&JP every 3 months with variances, etc., on the budget, and what's being used for what we've got that's not being used, because there will be some budgets that aren't used, and do we then approve those again? So I do think what Councillor Buckley has said is a valid point.
Yeah, I think the alternative to that is once the budget is set, if we need to spend something that is not provided for in the budget, it can always be, that expense can always be fired from, I think I'm right in saying, you correct me if I'm wrong, it can always be fired from another item, and that would have to, another item in the budget, and that would have to go through council. It can only be approved by full council. So, but
I do think,
Yeah,
and like I said, there is just monitoring of where we are with the budget and the variances in the budget is a valid point.
yeah, I think there's something in the revised financial regs
about.
Yeah, we've got to get them through.
I think the revised financial regs
So-
had that taken out, Chairman. Just to correct you, I think the revised financial regulations or standing orders actually has that point about 3 monthly reviews, and that was specifically taken out of the ones that were recommended to council, which were returned to the review and staffing committee.
So, is there a seconder for Councillor Buckley's proposal?
Nothing Chairman. Councillor Buckley has proposed something.
Yeah.
It can't be considered at this meeting because it's not on the agenda. What I would suggest.
Yes, that is a good point. Yes, it's,
Here, would you?
yeah,
I'm
no,
talking
it's to note that recommendations for this will need to be ready for consideration for council. It's not for anything else. So I'll take the clerk's advice on that.
So that will be coming to the next meeting, the Chairman, that proposal.
So the budget will be coming to full council.
But
We may be having another meeting of this committee before full council.
And Councillor Buckley's point can be put on the agenda.
It could be
Yeah.
put on the agenda. But it can't be
Discussed today.
Yeah.
What I also want is the item is taken out with the
This is
financial
deep.
regulations.
It's beyond deep.
Is not.
No, it wasn't. No,
As you
yes.
said,
That's right.
the item that was taken out, yes, it related to regular updates.
Yes, but it was for
But it was updates will be provided to council laws,
Yeah.
which is not the same as providing updates to council.
Yeah, yeah.
There is a very subtle difference.
Yeah, so it's yes.
It was actually the standing orders, not the financial regulations.
No, it wasn't
that was
financial.
taken out of.
I'm pretty sure. Anyway, we'll pass on to item number 13 to note just that the second instalment of the 25-26 model agreement and the precept should have been received by now.
It has, yes, it was like on the 29th of September.
There being no further items on the agenda, we can close it at 10:17. Thank you, councillors.
Councillor Kendall, I want to thank you for supporting the lights and sort of trying to bring some sanity into the information commissioner and supporting the last point you made. I hope you will stand firm on that, but thank you for your efforts.
Yeah, I was speaking to Chair earlier and saying I was passing